Hey boys and girls, Doug Giles here. It's Warriors, Rich.
And Wildmen. What's happening, Doug?
Boom, I'll tell you what's happening. My book's happening. It's been out for 2 days. If Masculinity is Toxic, Called Jesus Radioactive. And guess what, Rich? We put it in Gender Studies over on Amazon. Hit number 47 this morning in 2 days out of all those weird books over there. We're climbing to number one, as you would expect, my brother. And thank you for doing the forward to the book. I'll tell you another thing that's happening right here and right now, Rich. We've got our audience needs no introduction of our guest.
No
they
way.
They know him. They love him. Ted Nugent. But in case we got some snowflakes that are dipping in and trying to spy on what we're doing over here at Warriors and Wildmen, I'll give them a little introduction. Ted Nugent has carved out a permanent place in rock and roll history as a guitar shredding showman, selling more than 40 million, Rich. I said 40 million albums.
Yes.
Performing 6,400 high-octane Summer Plummet concerts. He's got a no-holds-barred career that spans 5 decades. He's all over television. A lot of people love him for being the nation's most outspoken Second Amendment activist, and he's a recipient of a lot of commendations from state police, sheriff department, FBI, and agency. And his wife, Shemane, also an author, blogger, podcaster, TV host, fitness guru, and she's been all over television, Entertainment Tonight, MTV, VH1, CMT, Discovery, and Fox. They got a new podcast out called the Ted and Shemane Podcast. You can find on Anchor FM. Guys, Ted, Shemane, longtime buddies. Thank you for being on Warriors and Wildmen. This is my partner, Rich Whitmer.
First of all, thanks for having us, Doug and Rich. We'd like to celebrate Warriors and Wildmen, and I suppose coming from the not-so-mean streets of Detroit, I would qualify on both counts. But all those accolades and all those wonderful gushing salutes to Uncle Ted were very heartwarming. But more importantly than any of that, look who I married. This is all you need to know. This is my wife, my hunting partner, my Second Amendment freedom, hell-raising blood sister. This is my best friend. This is the sexiest, most dangerous woman in the world, and she's mine, so hallelujah.
Amen. Glory. Hey, Shemane, you got to be happy that you don't have a snowflake for a husband during the COVID plague that has hit us, and that you guys have a freezer full of meat. I had this guy down in Austin say that, HEB is running out of meat. It's like, I'm not. My freezer's full, and I guarantee Ted's freezers are full.
Yeah, well, we've always hunted and lived off the land. We have a very different lifestyle, and now more than ever, we're proud to be hunters. We're proud to support Hunter Nation and be a part of that, and to get the vote out, because we've got to get elected officials involved who support hunting and hunters' rights, so we never have to worry about whether or not our local grocery store is going to be out of meat.
Yeah, good point. Hey, Shemane, obviously, you authored 4 Minutes a Day, Rock and Roll Your Way to Happy. What do you tell people during this COVID plague? I mean, you've got suicide hotlines, that they're, ringing off the hook. You've got a big spike in, depression meds and all this kind of just mental illness that has come with the shutdown of the government. How do you hit happy in 4 minutes during this kind of garbage?
It's very difficult times for a lot of people right now, unsure of what's going on. If you look at where we were 6 months ago, and if somebody would have said to you guys, you can't go outside without a face mask on, you can't go shopping, you can't buy meat, you can't go to church, we would have thought those people were crazy. Yeah. So the information that I've unearthed recently has caused me huge amounts of anxiety, even though I am a healthy, happy lifestyle guru. So I have to have some things in place where I do some rituals every night. I shut down, I put my little AirPods in my ears, I listen to a book on tape, which by the way is Outlander. And it's very well written, but it takes me away from the current situation. I can't have news blasting all day long. I get in the bathtub, I put some Epsom salts in, some lavender oil, and I just listen to the book on tape. And, it's really, you have to have some rituals. You got to go outside. You got to get some fresh, clean air. Having good, nutritious food really makes a difference, because those people who, have other health issues, number one thing that we can all do right now, guys, is to take care of our health. number one thing we should be doing. So make that the most important thing.
One of her great escapes, too, from all the craziness, because it's never been crazier, is that she is a world-class archer. And as we all know, that when you're into the samurai moment of archery, the world goes away, especially the nasty stuff. There's always good, bad, and ugly. But when we shoot our bows and arrows, and she really focuses, just watching her shoot, it helps me escape anything bad. It's all good. The bad and ugly goes away. So if we express anything here, Shemane has learned this over the years, that archery really can cleanse your soul, not just during the hunting season, but throughout the year. Yeah. There is a samurai spirit cleansing that takes place when you become the mystical flight of the arrow. And she does that on a daily basis.
Yeah, Rich and I were talking a couple of podcasts ago during the lamest plague ever known to mankind about you've got to deviate from the norm. You've got to chill with your wife. You got to shut off CNN if you even watch that garbage. Even Fox News, man, Fox is getting kind of CNN-ish in their whole COVID-19 plague rhetoric. I think, Sean's obviously doing a good job. I don't watch Laura because it's a little too late for me. We're doing other things at that time. Tucker's doing, I think, a bang-up job, man. But in regards to, deviating from the norm, as Geddy Lee talked about, watch a comedy. Turn off this stuff that's just absolute mind-numbingly irritating, to me at least. And we're being...
Comedy. Company and she was just telling me this morning that I'm the greatest kisser in the world and that she wants me to kiss. Did you not just tell me that? She just told me that. So if that's not funny, I don't know what is.
Hey, we're gonna throw tactical tomahawks this weekend down here in Wimberley. So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's not tossing arrows, but it's
The other thing that's really important is that in taking care of our health, we have to exercise. I remind him every day, even though he's outside all day long and he's mending fences and he's climbing trees and he's very, very active, we still need to stretch. We need to take care of our bodies. And we have to make sure that as we age, we've got a flexibility problem and joint mobility problem. So we need to make sure that we lubricate those joints and we move our bodies every day.
Can I interrupt you just for 1 second? Zeke, can you delete that whole segment? Because when my wife hears that, I'm never going to hear the end of it because she's actually working out right now while we're doing the podcast. So just make sure or just one long beep would probably be good too. Maybe a blackout.
You're screwed,
Maybe
Rich.
a blackout.
You're screwed, bro.
I'm in trouble now.
Hey, Ted and Shemane, I'm a Christian. I know it's not popular to be one anymore, but man, I plow into the Word of God. I declare it over COVID-19. I declare what God says and stand firm in my faith, against all the fears that they're trying to foist on us, especially little Lord Fauci. And that's another thing, that keeps my compass pointing true north.
Well, now more than ever, we have to put on the armor of God. And we do have this opportunity to communicate with you guys. And I'm gonna just jump in because I'm gonna turn it over to Ted solely in just a minute. But it is important. We're Christians. I've got 3 Bibles sitting here right next to me because I dive into the Word of God every day, and that provides me a lot of peace and solace. Because
boom, baby,
there they are.
Yeah, I
No, and it's not just, and Shemane, it's not just, peace and solace. Those are weapons. That's the Word of God's a sword that does damage to the enemy's lies and stuff.
We're in a spiritual war right now.
Absolutely.
Evil, dark source, and now more than ever, we've got to become digital soldiers. We have this opportunity to have this communication. We don't have to listen to mainstream media or watch mainstream media. As you said, a lot of them that we see on even Fox is going the way of just talking about COVID and just talking about what's going on. So we have this opportunity, and I think it's really important to speak about our faith and to talk about God and to put that information out there and encourage others to do the same.
Really
Amen.
good. I think it's important. You were talking about not watching the news, Doug. And I think it's really important that we don't sit and watch the news all day because they're only repeating the same thing over and over. And I started watching the news a while back when this first happened. And we called it at the beginning of the podcast, like when this thing first happened, that COVID-19 was going to be not that big of a deal. But when I watched the news for about an hour, I found myself becoming fearful. And I'm not that type of person. And I said, I'm not going to fill my head with this stuff. And so I check in on the news every once in a while. But you know what we did? We took our trailer, our four-wheel drive truck. We went way out of phone signal. We went and camped by a river, my wife and I and some friends. And it was such a horrible time. It was terrible because we didn't have to listen to how afraid everybody was. Down the street from where I live is this really cool biker bar, and they're serving food so they can serve food and alcohol to go, right? And so, but they're closed. So nobody can go there except for there were 200 bikers in the parking lot. And so they went and said, you guys can't be here. You got to get out of here. So I went by there the other day. And so they were buying their drinks and they were all standing under the shade at the gas pumps. So they were all hanging out. So they're not afraid to get together. Good. And so it does depend on who you're surrounding yourself with, what information you're putting in your head. And so I think that stuff is really important. We have to take care of ourselves so we can help other people.
That's our America. That's how we operate here as well.
Yeah.
Shemane, how can they get a hold of you?
So I'm all over social media. I'm blue check on Instagram, so look for Shemane Nugent. On Facebook, blue check, and it's Shemane.Nugent. I do interviews just about every day around 2 o'clock Central with people who are interested in finding out, like I am, more about what's really going on and asking the question, is this really all about the virus? I think not. What's going on with social distancing? What's going on with tracers? Are you guys aware of contact tracers? I mean, it's
freaky.
Now is the time. So I'm on there every day. Check it out. And I've got a book called 4 Minutes to Happy, available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And the reason that this is really important now, a lot of us don't have time to go to the gym. We can't go to the gym, but to work out for an hour a day or to do anything for an hour a day. So where you can start, let's say you've got anxiety. You asked me, Doug, about, suicides are on the rise. Let's say, somebody like Ted who's never meditated. I think you've meditated before.
Every day in October, November, December, January, February, in a tree.
But here's the place to start. Set your timer for 4 minutes. And just allow yourself, okay, I'm going to do 4 minutes of squats. I'm going to do 4 minutes of bicep curls. I'm going to do 4 minutes. I'm just going to run outside for 4 minutes. 4 minutes can turn into 10 or 20 or 30, and we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, if you want to catch COVID-19, sit on your butt and eat French fries. I tell people all the time, it's simple exercise, man. It stimulates your body's immune system. It jacks your my 170-pound frame to where I'm able to fend off, the Wuhan Weezer. So
diet, exercise.
How important it is people can get a hold of Shemane. I hope they do contact her because we get unsolicited testimonials every day, how her book and her podcasts and her videos and her interviews, emotional, teary-eyed testimonials, how she's literally saved people's lives and woke them up that they are in charge. We the people. We are experimenting in our self-government only in the United States of America, and to take power, to not seek empowerment, just take empowerment.
Yeah.
So that's how you can get a hold of Shemane. This is how I get a hold of Shemane.
I just followed you on Instagram, and then Zeke will make sure we put your Shemane's contact information for Warriors and Wildmen listeners.
Thanks for having me. I've got a documentary coming out at the end of the summer about toxic mold, and I'd love to come back and talk to you about that when that's ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be great.
You bet.
I'll turn you over to
Good stuff.
Thank you, sister.
Nice meeting you. See you later.
Cheers.
Now you don't have to ever wonder why I'm so upbeat, happy, positive, and spiritually buoyant on an hourly basis for 71 and a half years, because that's my wife.
Now we know. We know.
Ted, I guarantee you'd look a whole lot different if Hillary was sitting next to you.
Well, we need to talk about that. Let me hit it right between the eyes with what I believe is the crowbar of back to constitutional America. We created a Heartland for Trump in 2016, where we went around the country focusing on the top hunting states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And I could go into just a celebratory detail of that crusade to finally recruit the greatest, most impacting voting army in America, the licensed hunting families. And the reason that they're so powerful is because they have been embarrassingly apathetic, disconnected, and non-participatory forever. We have the statistics. But what we did is we woke them up in the top 3 hunting states in America. We have now created a battleship called huntthevote.org. Everybody write that down. Huntthevote.org, where we just took huntthevote.org. We registered licensed hunters. We prodded them in the ass. They voted in Wisconsin yesterday, and we won. We did it in California yesterday. Gentlemen, California, we won. We are galvanizing this heretofore non-existent voting army of licensed hunters. The percentage of voting hunters is absolutely pathetic. We're changing that. Huntthevote.org. That's the army that we're going to do what we did in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I'm telling you, Doug, Rich, we're going to do it in all 50 states. We're going to increase those margins, and we're going to make sure that the America-hating, communist-loving offshoot of the Communist Chinese Party, which I mean, look at what Nancy Pelosi stands for. Look what Adam Schiff is. Look what James Comey is. Look what John Brennan is. Look what James Clapper is. Look what Hillary Clinton is. Look what Joe Biden is. By any measure, they are the enemies of America. So huntthevote.org is the system by which we're going to galvanize the remedy to make sure we go back on that true north compass setting, which, call me controversial. God, family, country, freedom, Constitution. That's what we stand for. And that's a huge swath of America that heretofore, gentlemen, haven't even engaged. We're going to engage them. Watch what we do.
That's awesome, man.
Hey, Ted, jumping from the hunting industry and those who love everything about hunting, you've been, again, interfacing with the police, law enforcement for many, many moons. I'm telling you what, brother, I'm blown away down here just south of Austin in Hayes County, watching cops arrest people for playing catch in a deserted park, warn people about going to church, drones flying over neighborhoods, taking videos of guys drinking beer up on their rooftop. I don't know if you saw this or not, but one Seattle police officer said he's not going to do it anymore. And at first, his senior officer is like, "Yeah, that's great, good for you." And then all of a sudden, that video goes mega viral on Instagram, and they put him on leave. I know they put him on leave. Did they fire him?
I think he got fired.
Well, bottom line is, I think thank God for social media, in spite of the anti-American punks in charge of social media. Those of us who celebrate God, family, country, we declare our independence. We actually execute our independence every day, and there's a huge swath of us. We obviously now have a president, and we're going to win the other houses as well. The videos that are now available on social media, they keep censoring me. Do you know, gentlemen, Rich, Doug, you and I talked about this. In 2016, I hovered between 15 million and 36 million Facebook reach. When Donald Trump was elected, the commie punks of high tech, they censored me back to only 3.5 million. They knocked me back to 10%
Wow.
my reach, because my truth, logic, and common sense is irrefutable unless you're high on stupidity and all the other mind-altering chemicals that are available to you. So
government checks.
So you go and find this one video of, like, I think it was 18 LA cops, and believe me, nobody supports law enforcement more than I do. I've been a sheriff deputy since 1983. I've conducted federal raids. I have 12 felony arrests to my credit. I'm not a spectator. I'm a participant in law and order. pure law and order. So I salute those heroes of law enforcement that deserve to be saluted. But in LA, there was, I think it was 18, a guy videoed 18 cops all within inches of each other, shutting down a church because there were more than 10 people in the church, though they were distanced. Stop and think what that can only mean one thing. Achtung.
Yep.
Those are jack-booted thugs, and they should be ashamed of themselves because they took an oath to the Constitution and they violate it like that. Thank God we have footage of that, because you can't be a cop with a soul or a conscience, gather en masse with fellow cops, and shut down the citizens who you work for actually doing the right thing. But somebody in the hierarchy of that division and that jurisdiction told him to shut down a church for doing less than what the cops were doing. Really examine that. That is obscene. It is as anti-American as you can get. And I hope that there are whistleblowers in law enforcement, because that James Comey is trying to act like J. Edgar Hoover and John Brennan and James Clapper. These guys are in super authority of law enforcement and control, and they're the biggest crooks in America.
Yeah. Ted, I have something I want to throw out there. Doug and I were just talking on our last podcast. In Arizona, in the small town of Yuma, where I have a church here also, the governor gave special permission to one church to open as long as they followed certain criteria. And so, which obviously is against the Constitution. And so they did it, and there were pictures of the pastor with his mask on the stage, and everybody was doing that. Doug, I haven't told you this yet. I saw the pastor at Target on Saturday not wearing a mask. So it's not about science. Obviously, he doesn't believe in the mask, but he was willing to give up his rights for the government to give him back a piece of his freedom. And you know what? We gather whenever we want to, Ted. We don't care. They can come get us if they want to.
Well, I've always been a hellraiser. I've always been controversial because I stand up for the self-evident truth of this experiment in self-government, God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, that we the people are individual. We have individual rights that the Founding Fathers guaranteed so that kings and emperors and other punks couldn't infringe on our freedoms. And I'd ask you and everybody listening right now, Doug and Rich, does anybody have their government-issued paperwork for the First Amendment? And in what jurisdictions would that government? Oh, wait a minute. You don't need government-issued paperwork for your First Amendment. You don't need government-issued paperwork for any amendments except the Second Amendment. That's an infringement, and we've allowed it to metastasize across this country. Let me make it perfectly clear. My name is Ted Nugent. I am a free American. I have self-evident truth from God as an individual, and they're all states, all cities, all jurisdictions, all neighborhoods, all buildings, all of my rights are American rights. And that this punk-ass, jackbooted government has reduced the Second Amendment to a whim. Well, we'll give you some paperwork so you have your Second Amendment. I don't need paperwork. I don't even need the Second Amendment, quite honestly. I know in my soul that I have the right to defend myself, and I can keep and bear arms, and I can say what I want to say, and I can choose my religion or no religion, and I have the security in my home, and I can have gatherings, and I can do what this is what we're dealing with. So those are the dark horrors that Shemane was referencing earlier that we have to stand up and fight. So I'm going to make a circle. Huntthevote.org. If someone doesn't stand for everything I just said, we need to get rid of them and vote for someone who stands for God, family, country, freedom, Constitution. And that is identified in its most definitive way by the hunting families of this country. And just the licensed hunters in America could win every election if we just all voted God, family, country.
Hey, Ted, as a Michiganiac, man, you're the brothers up there in Michigan. I know we've got a mutual friend, Skip Coryell with White Feather Press. He makes a big part of his income from concealed carry permitting, and Whitmer's got no end in sight really to open Michigan back up for the God and Country Patriots. I don't know.
Yeah, the Michigan Governor Whitmer, not this Whitmer. This is different.
Yeah,
spelling.
no relation, spelled with an H.
No relation whatsoever.
Ted, I mean, is this a 1774 footing, 1775 footing? I mean, where are we? Because I smell a second revolution coming on real strong. Like Shemane said, who'd have thunk, back in January or maybe November that our whole nation's going to be locked down, church is going to be banned, you can't go to a Ted Nugent concert, can't watch a baseball game and sit in the stands. And and everybody's got to walk around wearing a flipping mask, and our economy is completely brought down to, Great Depression type standards.
Well, you're identifying some heartbreaking bad and ugly. Unfortunately, there's just an unlimited tsunami of heartbreaking anti-American bad and ugly just raging across this country. So we could sit here and we could probably spend hour after hour identifying the egregious violations of constitutionality and just self-evident truth and common sense and logic and science when it comes to hunting regulations and the abuse of power running amok. But I'm going to focus on the good. You referenced my celebration of a real Michiganiac. We used to call ourselves Michiganders, but gander sounds lame. It's all those ganderers is what bent over and allowed this to take place. So I'm recruiting a huge army of real Michiganiacs, the shit kickers, the working hard, playing hard, be an asset to your family, an asset to your neighborhood, an asset to your state, an asset to your country, an asset to the environment, and an asset to your fellow man. Those are the Michiganiacs that made Michigan the #1 hunting state in the nation when I was growing up. Unfortunately, the liberals have brainwashed so many people and rewarded them for not being productive, for not working hard, just playing hard. And what you see recently in those protests, those are my Michiganiacs. The protesters in Austin, those are my Texans. Governor Abbott isn't the greatest governor in America. I think Kristi Noem in South Dakota is. But Governor Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton and the great Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, they showed what Texas is made out of here last week when they went and overturned that punk-ass communist power-abusing constitutional oath-violating judge in Dallas. And they let that gal out of jail for opening her beauty salon. First of all, the cops that enforce that should be ashamed of themselves. Well, we're supposed to enforce the law, Ted. It's not a law. That ain't a law.
Right.
It's a decree. It hasn't passed any review of we the people. Only we the people through our elected employees can make laws, you dirt bag. So my governor in Texas, my attorney general, and my lieutenant governor swooshed in there with a crowbar of truth, logic, and common sense and whopped that son of a bitch right in the head and said, back off, goofball. We're letting her out of jail and I'm paying her fine. And don't do this anymore. I just hope that he gets impeached. That judge should be impeached. So I see protests in California. I see protests in Wisconsin. I see protests in Ohio. Those are my shit kicker Americans. I get the Constitution. Let's see. It's not an opinion. It's not a presumption. I don't assume I might have God-given rights if some authority figure, some self-imposed authority figure okays it, because we are the authority. Those aren't elected officials. We are the electing officials. Those people are elected employees, and it's about time we have a president, hallelujah, Donald J. Trump, who's reminding these elected employees they work for us, and their working orders start with the U.S. Constitution. And I just pray to God that the Earth's axis is reversed, because American families will not trust the government of the United States. They'll never trust the media again. We will not trust our government until arrest warrants are issued for Barack Obama, Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, Lois Lerner, Susan Rice, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Adam Schiff, James Comey,
Peter Strzok.
Are you kidding me? This Lon Horiachi, who murdered Vicky Weaver and her son. Why isn't that punk in jail? So my point is that we're not stupid. I'm just a guitar player. I didn't just write Wango Tango. I actually meant it. That was just a celebration of a campfire, happened to be up my ass. You have a problem with that, go listen to some comfortably numbnut music. My point being is that I know the American shit kickers, and we have had enough. So, Doug, to your question, you know how I'm a little verbose because I'm so passionate about my individual freedoms. We're not going to have a 1776 revolution at Concord Bridge, I pray. Instead, we're going to have a voting revolution, and we're going to get rid of the obnoxious, dishonest, psychotic Nancy Pelosi's and Adam Schiff's. And that is it. I'm going to keep saying it. Please, everybody, go to huntthevote.org. You all know who the enemy is, and you all know who stands up for God, family, and country. Huntthevote.org is going to be the turning point for electing the proper people who take the oath to the Constitution and actually adhere to it, because we're going to start forcing you to.
Rich, you got something for Ted before
Ted,
greatest speech ever, man.
yeah, I was gonna say I didn't even need coffee this morning. Thanks, Ted.
Woo,
That got me
maybe.
fired up. That got me fired up. Ted, I do have a question for you. So in America today, I know this is kind of turning the topic a little bit, but they're really pushing this beta male type of thing, and they're trying to get rid of the masculine. It's toxic masculinity, right? What do you think about that, Ted?
Well, first of all, it's only a lunatic fringe attempt. The people who actually push that are so laughable. They keep talking about diversity, that's more important than capability. They're talking about diversity as if that's more important than content of character. So the people who are pushing this anti-man pussification, despining, scrotum elimination in America, they are such a laughable lunatic fringe that I find it more hysterical than when Richard Pryor caught his afro on fire, which was the peak of comedy in the history of mankind. He's my hero. In fact, I'm not even allowed to mention my favorite album of all times, my two favorite albums of all time, because the titles of Richard Pryor's album are now forbidden to repeat, but you know what they are. In the great script of Richard Pryor and Blazing Saddles, they're sharp as there. Anyhow, so you know what, Rich? It not only doesn't worry me. In fact, the Nancy Pelosi's, they not only don't worry me, the Hillary Clintons don't worry me, the Eric Holder and Barack Obamas don't worry me. What worries me is when people see these glaring, inescapable crimes by these people and they don't do anything. If that wolf is out in your field howling one night and you identify the howl, and the next night he's closer, and you know he's closer, and then the next night he's scratching on your door and you still don't do nothing, your kids deserve to be eaten by the wolf. Because when I hear the wolf way out in the distance, I go out on a full moon night with some night optics and I shoot that wolf. I get rid of the danger and the threat to my family before he's scratching at the door. And that is for those liberals that want to sick the Secret Service on me because I'm referencing Democrats to wolves and we need to shoot them. That's a perfect example of how stupid they are. I'm referencing taking care of business. And those of us that hunt, fish, and trap, we know that the environment will only be healthy and thriving, produce quality air, soil, and water if we harvest the responsible surplus every year to make room for next year's wildlife production. So as a hunter, I'm referencing how we should vote metaphorically on how we should manage wildlife for healthy, thriving biodiversity. And anybody that doesn't get that is probably a huge Michael Moore fan who's still searching for washcloths and soap.
Hey, Ted. Ted, help. Again, say somebody who doesn't understand what you understand and what you've laid out during the podcast, and or somebody's poking around Wars and Wild Men, trying to spy on what we're talking about in order to muzzle us. Inform them that it's not the government's job to keep us safe or to protect our health, but what's the government supposed to help us protect?
Well, I never went to college. I was too busy learning stuff. You know that, Doug. And I've learned pragmatism, utilitarian, common sense. I've studied science. That's why I'm a hunter, a fisher, and a trapper, because I have a moral, spiritual, and intellectual obligation to eat deer. I need to make room for next year's spawns so that the wildlife habitat is in primary condition for producing quality air, soil, and water. I still hold the world record on a Joe Rogan podcast. I think we went 3.5 hours because that's how energized I am and how passionate I am to crush the lies and the deceit and the denial that is eating away at an otherwise perfect experiment in self-government. So what I say to people is that all you have to do is study a modicum of history and see how everything that Omar and Nancy Pelosi and Tlaib in Detroit and these Democrats, everything they stand for has already been tried, and it creates genocide, pollution, needles and feces in the streets. Everything the Democrats stand for has historically glowed with tragedy, heartbreak, death, and destruction. And it's like I had a conversation with my daughters this morning when I put forth a YouTube video of a police officer from Georgia, an ex-police officer, identifying how everybody is jumping to an irresponsible conclusion like they did with Michael Brown and Ferguson and Trayvon Martin in Florida before they study any of the facts, and where the so-called jogger, turns out he wasn't jogging. And it turns out that if you go by the rule of law, that in Georgia, most of those laws actually make sense. You're allowed to carry a gun. You're allowed to defend yourself. You're also allowed to follow somebody who's been in a home illegally. And when you caught that person in the home illegally, they run away from you. They were performing a citizen's arrest, and all the evidence proved that what they were doing was 100% by the book and logical. But when attacked by this so-called, I don't have the guy's name in front of me, but it's another Trayvon Martin, Michael Moore hysteria, falsehood.
Yeah.
I think those two guys were attempting to execute a citizen's arrest based on eyewitness and video evidence of criminal behavior. And the jogger that wasn't jogging, he was running away from someone who caught him. This is allegedly, I'll use the term allegedly, but the video and this black cop identified that everyone's jumping to conclusions, just like they did with Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin, and that this guy wasn't jogging, and he attacked that guy and tried to take away his gun. And the only logical thing to do is when you are attacked and a person goes out of their way to come at you as you're trying to stop them, and you have a gun, that person is no longer unarmed. The attacker is not unarmed. He has a hold of your gun. And if he gets it, all escalating behavior proves that he's going to kill you. You have to stop him. You have to terminate the threat. So my daughter says, well, there's always two sides to every story. And I went, you're right. There were two sides to the World War II story, but there was only one right side. There were two sides to the story of slavery, but there was only one right side. There were two sides to the premise of segregation, but there was only one right side. So we have to be honest, intelligent. We have to be reasonably educated to what has transpired in history and apply it to experiences that are going to repeat themselves, because we're still human. We still have the same human pulses, anxieties, fears, dreams, positive, good, bad, ugly. And I'm just a guitar player, but my drive in life is to be a great husband, a great father and grandfather, a damn good neighbor, a good citizen, a good steward of these precious, renewable, wild resources. And I've succeeded in that, which is proof that those that hate me must hate clean air, soil, and water, must hate safe neighborhoods, must hate people who are productive, must hate people who give to children's charities and law enforcement, military charities every day. Those are the people that hate me. And just like the left, every time they make an accusation against a a conservative or a Republican, in every instance, Tucker Carlson, my new hero of truth, logic, and common sense, every time the left makes a nasty accusation of racism and homophobia and all the other nonsense attacks, in every instance, they're guilty of their accusations. And that summarizes what the haters and the left and the comfortably numbnuts out there have always said about me. They lie about me because they can't debate me. If you attempt to debate me, I will remain pleasant and a gentleman throughout until you get really stupid and just scramble with denial. Then I'll gnaw on your family tree and spit toxic sawdust in your face because I live truth, logic, and common sense. And if you try to argue with me, you're against truth, you're against logic, and you're against common sense, and I will dance on your skull.
That's Ted Nugent, ladies and gentlemen. Ted, thanks for being on Warriors and Wildmen. Where can they go to find more Ted?
Well, first, guys, number one, thanks for having me on, because I like to think that this Warriors and Wildmen, I think so. This podcast is like an electronic campfire, and I salute you guys for stepping forward. And I know you always have, Doug, and Rich, I don't know you, but I have a funny feeling I'm going to get to know you. If you're on this podcast standing up for the self-evident truth of the American dream, we are blood brothers. But I want to tell everybody who goes on my Facebook, we have between 3 and 4 million Facebookers talking about truth, logic, common sense, goodwill, decency, cocky, funny, defiant, rebels with a cause. Some really, really clever people are on my Facebook every day, so I salute them. And I would welcome everybody to come. In fact, Rich, Doug, you guys should come on, because we cover every imaginable human experience, both topical and historical and futuristic. So I would like to just say,
Ted, I would love to come on Facebook, but I got kicked off on October 18th, 2018. I had 2 million, brother. I had 2 million followers, and we had a reach of 10 to 20 million people a week. And we were killing it, brother, just absolutely killing it. And
so far, I haven't been completely kicked off. I'm constantly compromised, and they keep knocking down my reach. But I got to tell you, when I hit huntthevote.org, for example, I know that my Facebookers aren't just casual. Well, I'm just observing what Ted's doing. No. They're engaged. They take that huntthevote.org and they spread it amongst family, friends, coworkers, church, school, the barbecue, the bowling alley, the gun range, deer camp. So there is a growth out there. And I got to tell you, if we do what we did in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania in 2016, and President Trump told me this in the Oval Office, he shook my hand. He goes, I understand you really did a number in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. My team said that you helped us get over the hump. You're damn right I did. We're going to do that nationwide. Huntthevote.org is how we're going to finally galvanize and inspire that huge licensed hunting army of America to vote God, family, country. We're going to go all across the country promoting events where I'm going to play Fred Bear and I Just Want to Go Hunting and some sexy grinding animal breeding music, and inspire people to grab this bull by the horns and rustle him to the ground and turn them into family-sized portions.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you, Ted. Good stuff, amigo.
A big salute to you guys.
Thanks for
Cheers,
coming
man.
on,
Stay
Ted.
rowdy.
Awesome, man.
Yep, live it up. See you on Facebook, those who can. And by the way, Doug, I got you covered. Believe me, when I speak, it's you, and you know that.
Thank you, my friend.
You bet. Live it up. Godspeed.
Yep. Stay rowdy, brother. Hey, Rich, I told you, buddy, Ted Nugent's one of the greatest interviews a person can get. And I just sit back. Just throw hardball, softball, anything, anything sets him off. And every topic that we toss to, completely informed, in-depth, and entertaining. So again,
Doug,
I tell you what, brother.
So fun. It was so awesome. And I want to say this, and I'm going to clarify it. Ted Nugent is crazy. When I say crazy, I mean good crazy, awesome crazy, smart crazy.
Not
funny,
Pelosi, not Pelosi
he is
crazy.
Sharp. No. He's crazy in a good way. He is a warrior and a wild man. I mean, it was what a fun interview and informative. Absolutely. The guy's sharp, man. That was a good time.
Now, I tell you, we go way back. 2002, I think, was our first interview. Then did some TV stuff in 2003 in Miami with him, and just been following through the years. Ted's career, Ted's activism, and he hasn't lost a step, man. My first. The concert I took my daughters to, very first concert they ever saw, Hannah Reed. Ted invited us to come to see him and ZZ Top.
Wow.
Brought us backstage. So Hannah and Reed, I mean, they haven't seen, Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or any of that kind of drivel. It's Ted Nugent and ZZ Top, and the guys, Billy Gibson and I can't remember the other guys' names, but they're backstage with Ted, and we got Regis and Hannah back there. Dude, they're walking through with their pajamas on, They just look like old men. and I don't know if it was Regis or Hannah. They're like, "Who's those old people? They're stealing the food," because they're going up to the the green room and taking food. It's like, well, that's ZZ Top, and yes, they're Texas classics. And
I think it's crazy. He said he's 71 years old. He's a machine, dude.
Well, we're supposed to be machines at 71. It's a new day, and like Ted's always preached. If you take care of your mind, you take care of your body. If you don't, believe the toxins of anti-constitutional liberalism, you tend to be healthier and happier. Yep. And Rich, as he pointed out, if you marry a beautiful, energetic woman like Shemane, well, that adds years to your life too. You get some carpy, nasty ass hag like the Hildebeest. You look at the difference between Ted Nugent and Bill Clinton. They're the same age.
Yeah, they're only a few years apart. Yeah.
No, Bill's over there just holding for dear life. He's shaking. Looks like he's got all kinds of maladies coursing through that philandering body. But there you go. You got Ted, and I guarantee he'd be on.
That was awesome.
I guarantee Rich he'd be on tour this summer. Always touring before the hunting season, and shuts it down come October to hunt through February. But
once they open it up, I gotta get over and see a Ted Nugent concert for sure. And then Doug, something awesome happened this week.
Talk to me.
Somebody's book just came out.
Oh yes, mine. Rich, If Masculinity is Toxic, called Jesus Radioactive. 2 days. I just refreshed the page. It's number 47 in general gender studies. You ought to see all the books in there. It's the funniest stuff. So it's like, it's, as you can imagine, it's like one of the most liberal categories known to mankind. But I'm sitting there thinking with my publisher, Skip's like, well, we're talking about masculinity. As far as I know, Rich, that masculinity is still, unless something's been changed since we had Nugent on, that's a gender. So let's put it in gender studies.
Come on.
And oh my God, man. You want me to give you
Well, Doug, I read the book, and I like your books. I read your books. But I was super impressed. I think this is by far the best book. Maybe it's because of my perspective, because I'm a pastor, but I loved it. I loved the scholarship of the book. I love the practical aspects of the book. I love the fact that as you're reading it, you can literally look at Jesus and go, this is how Jesus did it. This is how we should do it. And if that's not the definition and the description of masculinity, then I don't know what is. And I thought it was, I don't want to say this on Warriors and Wildmen, but I thought it was extremely balanced in the sense that some people think, well, it means like scratching your butt and burping. And if they think that, they have no clue as to what this book is about, because it's about character. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the book. And I think if people take it and take the time to read it, they're going to be blown away. We're going to use it here. I already told my team we're going to use it here for our men. We're going to go through it as a study together. So they're going to get the books and we're going to go through it. And
awesome.
I was really, really blown away, Doug. I thought it was your best work so far.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I'm proud of it. I guess,
That's a good thing.
In a righteous sense of the word. I'm not like arrogant, like, look what I did. It's like, no, it's a lot of work, like you said. 37 chapters, 40,000 words, and I'm telling you what, man. When I was writing that book, I had some interesting moments with the Holy Ghost as he would fill the room, as he would. I hate to sound mystical, as he would illuminate the text, and I won't say that I was superintended by him, but man, in some of those chunks, especially the Matthew 10, where I take 4 chapters to plow through the richness. Not that the other chapters are insubstantial, obviously, but Matthew 10, I think that's one of the most definitive aspects of who Christ was from a man's standpoint and what he required of the men who are going to follow him. Mm-hmm. And talking about masculinity, some of the stuff that he laid out in Matthew chapter 10, I'm going to send you as sheep in the midst of wolves. You're going to cry about it. You're not going to take money. You're going to trust me. You're going to cry about it. If you deny me, I'll deny you. People are going to hate you. They hated me. If you back off an ounce from your devotion or confession of me, I'm going to send you to hell. I mean, it's just raw. And
yeah,
I said in one of my opening chapters, I would give my left testicle. No, I probably would, if I could see somehow Christ preaching and what it was like to hear him deliver a message. Because several times within the book of Matthew, it says that the people were recognizing that he spoke with authority and
he spoke as one having authority, not like
all the other religious leaders. This dude was rocking it, and to somehow turn him into some little sweet cardigan-wearing bearded woman who agrees with occasional cortex, to me, Rich, that's the unpardonable sin.
Yep.
So
great stuff, man. So got to get the book, guys. If Masculinity is Toxic, called Jesus Radioactive. Awesome book.
Yeah, no, it's good. We got to have a Warriors and Wildmen conference. Get the boys nationally to rock up and maybe lay into if masculinity is toxic, called Jesus Radioactive in a big national way.
Yep.
I think it'd be cool. I don't know what it'd look like, but I know that I'm sick of being told that you can't gather more than 10 people. It's time to say au contraire and maybe have a big conference where we offend the little governors and mayors.
Other than the places that they've closed, I obviously can't go there, but I have not obeyed any of the decrees. I have not social distanced. I have not gathered in small groups. I have gathered in large groups anytime and every chance that I get, and I will not comply. And I've been writing Defy the Order on everything on social media. People get furious. I don't care. I'll gather with any men that want to get together. Let's get together. Let's do it. We'll have a conference. We'll have a conference in spite of them. We'll go out in the middle of the desert and light a big fire and have a conference. You know what I'll do, Doug? I'll have a meeting at my church, and it won't be open to the public. It'll be members and invited people only, and we'll close the gates, and we'll tell the police, this is private property. When you have a warrant, let us know. Hit the road. I'm down. Doug, I was born for this kind of stuff. It's like, when everything's good, I'm the worst pastor ever. When the world falls apart, Doug, I'm all of a sudden, I'm looking pretty good.
Yeah, when everything's good, you get angry and start breaking stuff. When everything goes to hell, you start building, and planting.
Come on.
And, making things better. Hey, huntthevote.org, Warriors and Wildmen, got to go over there too. And Rich, what do they got to do when they leave this podcast?
Go to warriorsandwildmen.com. Subscribe, like us, love us, find us on the podcast app and all your different places you listen to podcasts. You will find us there, Warriors and Wildmen, social media, and share this with someone. Share it with one of your friends. If you have somebody that you're thinking about and you think, man, they would really like this, send that link over to them and share it with them.
Hey, one other thing before we sign off, talking about sharing, share my book link from Amazon, If Masculinity is Toxic, called Jesus Radioactive, because here's why. Number one, I guarantee that there's people like me and Rich and you Warriors and Wildmen viewers that are sitting in church going, you know what, this stuff is getting really lame, and I don't think Jesus was lame. This book, oh my God, it's going to fuel that revelation, that knowledge base, and build it into a big old muscle of rightness, because you are spot on. We are lame. Evangelicalism has been effeminized. Number two, there's people, I guarantee, Rich, guys that said, you know what, I've had enough of this crap, and they might not have a big option of where to go to church because they live in a small town or out in the country, or their city doesn't really have a good selection of churches, and they just bailed. This is going to feed them, could bring them, with some like-minded brothers, either online or some other church where they're preaching the truth and they haven't neutered the gospel. And number three, if there's an unsaved guy like I was, that I didn't want to become a Christian because I thought that I was going to have to, give up my balls and my brains, and it's in that whole effeminization of evangelicalism is what's kind of keeping them, because they don't want to be a wussy, and all they see are Christian wussies. This could be the thing that gets them converted to the Son of God, King of Kings and Lord of Lords,
and not to religion.
I've had two people unsolicited, Rich. They said, Doug, love the book. He said, the last chapter, your testimony, I'm telling you, the Spirit of God fell in my room when I was reading that. One guy said he got all choked up. The other guy said he just laughed and laughed and laughed. And I was like, what's so funny, man? That's my pain. That hurt me. He goes, no. He said, I'm telling you, that chapter is going to lead a lot of people to Christ. That testimony is powerful. It's going to wallop Satan when lost men and women get their eyes on it. Come on, brother.
And here's another thing I'm going to throw out there. Maybe we'll do this on a podcast. Maybe you're in a city and you can't find a church that's like that. You can follow our church online. And I haven't really put this out there yet, but we have training that you can do online that will train you to be a small group leader. You can be a part of what we're doing wherever you're at. We'll do a whole podcast on that. We'll talk about that. But there's no need to not live for the Lord and not be a part of a Christian community just because the churches in your area are more religious and mainstream. Maybe you're radical and wild like us. You want to be, that flavor. If that's you, hit us up. Let us know, because we have a lot of training stuff. We've trained have trained thousands of pastors overseas. We could do that here. We could do it in America. Yeah. So if people want to learn that stuff, let us know. I mean, if you can't find it, build it.
Right. I remember when I was sitting around one time, I was like, well, church sucks, bunch of wussies. God's like, why don't you start one? Mm-hmm. So we did exactly what you said, man. Next thing you know, it looks like a keg party outside. Cars are parked all weird angles and stuff, and they go for 100, 200 yards, and it was on like Donkey Kong. So I think Rich, I was doing an interview with Joe Messina last night in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles area, and I said, Joe, I'm telling you right now, man, that where these pastors are looking to the governors and Fauci for permission to exist and proclaim and to gather together. I'm telling you, brother, there's going to come some Amoses who are fig pickers and some Elijahs out of nowhere that are Tishbites, that God says, you're the man for this hour.
Yep.
Because, same thing with David. You haven't been compromising. All your brothers are compromised. Everybody else is chicken shit. But David, you've been worshiping me. You're the only one who's has a job that we know of all of his brothers. You're responsible to your old man with his goods, and you've got a heart for me. Boom. You teenager, you're going to be the one who slays Goliath, and you're going to be king in Zion. So boom. I think it's going to happen, brother. I think it is happening. So, all right, bro.
Great interview with Ted. He's awesome. That was a fun time, man.
Yeah, good stuff. Ted never disappoints, unless you're a liberal.
Warriors and Wildmen.